to our second installment of Wargame Wednesday. This is Lorenzo from That's Your Garbage, along with G, who's ham-handedly trying to operate this camera on a tripod.
That's right, we upgraded.
Speaking of upgrades, you'll notice if you watched last week's installment of Wargame Wednesday that beyond the superior camera work from the tripod, G's also managed to paint a few more of his ships, particularly his cruisers. And I think he did a little work on his battleship too.
The base coat's done. It'll be done by tomorrow.
Excellent. His cruisers will be finished just in time for him to never use them again because he despises them with the fury of 1,000 suns.
They're the worst ships in the game.
Although, to be fair, he also just tends to roll really bad with them. He rolls with his cruisers the way I tend to roll with my battleship, which is to say, unfathomably poorly. If you look at the terrain deployment for this game, you'll see that the terrain ended up very different from the first game, leaving a lot of open area in the center and a much more heavily covered area in G's deployment zone with the 2 asteroid fields. You'll notice that our deployments are also a little bit different. G's concentrated his deployment in the central area protected by the 2 asteroid fields, leaving only 1 squadron of frigates on the other hand behind the moon that you'll remember from last week's episode.
Yeah, Death Moon.
The Siren Moon.
Come to me if you want to live. Boom.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Boosh.
Spooch everywhere.
Yeah, pretty much.
So much for the not swearing part.
Yeah, I know,
That's staying in.
Yeah. Anyhow.
If you're 15 and watching this video, stop now.
Yeah, pretty much. My deployment this week is a little bit different. I wanted to give myself some more options than I had last week. I deployed further out to the edges last week in that kind of split wing deployment that tends to be the signature for Dindrenzi. Because most of the Dindrenzi primary weapons are fixed forward firing, that is, they can only fire in a forward channel defined by the width of the base that the ships are mounted on. The general rule of thumb with the Dindrenzi is to deploy them in 2 split wings and kind of bring them into the table in an X formation. This gives you the maximum possibility to line up shots with the forward fixed weapons while also being able to bring the gun racks that fire into the port or starboard arc into play at the same time. In this case, I've deployed in a way that kind of gives me a little more flexibility for how I can play the situation, depending on who wins first turn and what kind of ranges I'm at once we start moving. With that said, let's get the camera back into the central position, and I guess we will...
I just want to talk about my tactics.
Oh, yes.
Guy said my own goddamn name. I'm gonna... I'm not gonna lie and say I have no passing familiarity with tactics. I can't really tell you what my tactics are, because I'm hedging my bets that Lorenzo didn't read that part of the rulebook, because I'm a dick. But if that doesn't pan out, I'm gonna die. Again. Which is really why anybody watches these videos anyway. So we're going to pause the video for a second, get rolling with turn 1, and then we'll pick up there.
So, we've just started the first turn here, and G decides to, after finally remembering that we should draw cards, to see if maybe we want to use any, G immediately plays a sensor distortion because he's a raging asshole.
I do good things.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's going to be fun for me to try and deal with because it kind of removes the utility of that asteroid field pretty much entirely. Good times.
That clap was me doing a happy dance. You didn't get to see it because the camera was
Thank God.
But it was good.
Okay. So we've each moved 1 unit. I moved this unit of frigates, and G moved 1 of his units of frigates. It's next to his battleship now, and he's planning to fire with his torpedoes on his 3 frigates at my 3 frigates that are over here. Now, the way torpedoes work in Firestorm Armada is a little bit intricate because it involves a bunch of different rules. What he's doing in order to maximize his chances of damaging me are each of those frigates has 4 torpedoes at range band 4. Now, he's linking fire with 2 of his ships which gives him this 6 dice, 6 attack dice. But then the third frigate is splitting its 4 attack dice between these 2 ships to give 2 and 2. Okay? Because he gets the 6 because each of them has 4, but when they link fire, every supporting ship that adds its fire to the main ship adds half its dice, rounding down. So 4 and half of 4 being 2 is 6. So the reason he's split his fire this way is because in Firestorm Armada there's an anti-torpedo defense that every ship has called point defense. Each of these frigates has 2 point defense. Now, because he's split fire with his torpedoes, I'm forced to split fire with my point defense, which means that the combined 4 point defense that these 3 frigates have together, 2, 1, and 1, have to be split between these 3 attacks. So I'm splitting them with 1 dice of point defense against each of the 2 dice attacks, and 2 dice of point defense against the attack with 6 dice. So now
we're going to roll them. I'll start with the 2 smaller ones first, because they should technically do absolutely nothing. Right, I got 2.
2 hits, which doesn't do anything, so I won't even roll the point defense.
The other one, I got nothing.
So I won't bother rolling the point defense.
And now I got 6 dice.
Now I should add that when firing with any of the main weapons in Firestorm Armada, 4 and 5s are hits. 6s are 2 hits, and you get to roll an extra dice. In this case, with that weird symbol is a 6 on that dice. He's got 2 6s and a 5. This is a total of 5 hits, and he gets to roll 2 additional dice now to see if he can do more damage. So I'll roll 2 extra dice, and nothing. So it's a total of 5 points of damage, which is higher than the damage rating of my frigate. But it's not higher than the critical rating, so it's only a regular hit. Now I have to see if I can cancel any of the incoming damage. For canceling it with point defense, only 5s and 6s count, but 6 is still 2 and roll again. In this
definitely canceled everything.
I canceled 3 of them, which brings the total damage down to 2, which is less than the damage rating of my frigates, so he can't actually do any damage with that shot, which means he didn't end up doing any damage with that volley. I've moved my second unit of frigates over here, and I've moved them out towards the central direction of the board to try and line up a shot at G's frigates that are behind the Siren Moon. Now, these frigates at range band 4, which is what they're in barely, have 2 attack dice each in their 4 fixed broadside. To give you a visual example of what 4 fixed means in this game, basically, this outside line of the base to this outside line of the base, so basically that 2-inch channel pointing directly forwards is the arc in which these guns can fire. This is different than most of the guns on most broadsides on most ships in this game, which can fire in 90-degree arcs out from a direction, be it port or starboard usually. In this case, I have 2 attack dice for each of these frigates at this range, so I'm linking fire with all 3 of them to give me 4 attack dice, 2, 1, and 1, against that unit of frigates. That unit of frigates also has shields, which gives it 1 dice to roll to attempt to cancel incoming damage. Unlike the point defense, which only works on a 5 or a 6, shields work on a 4, 5, and 6 like attack dice do. So I'm going to roll these dice now and see if I can do anything to his frigate.
So far, no damage.
So far,
we do work.
Yes,
we do work, guys.
So far, we've been firing Nerf bullets, but this is sort of typical in Firestorm Armada in the early stages of the game. The damage starts to ramp up significantly as you close to the closer range bands. The path of the right now. So anyway, as I was saying, so he's using the fixed forward guns on his battleship to fire at this frigate, which get 5 attack dice. And finally, he's using his torpedoes, which can fire in any arc, to fire at this frigate, which he gets 8 attack dice with that. But because now he's using all of his torpedoes at 1 frigate, because these 2 other frigates are within 4 inches of the firing line, they can add their point defense to this one, and in this case I get to combine them all for the 4-point defense.
Now the reason, one second, sorry. The reason I did that is because I have 8 dice, he has 4, so it's only half. Splitting fire would have just been egregious.
Well, it would have just been 4 against 2, or whatever else, right?
It's not the same, it's the same thing, just different ways.
Yeah, right.
I write this shit up.
Dice, roll them.
Okay, so this one first?
Yes.
That doesn't count. Yeah!
Okay, so we've got 4, 5...
2 rerolls.
And
the gold do nothing because
okay,
it's a turn.
so we have a total of 5, which it does 1 point of damage to this frigate. And I am...
We'll mark it after?
Yeah, we'll mark it after. For now, I'll just stick a dice with 1 on it on there to mark that it has a point of damage.
And then run the 4 fix now? Yes, yeah, 2 nothing.
Okay, that does nothing.
And now the 8. Come on, babies. 1,
Wow.
2, 3, 4, 5.
That's it, because it's torps.
Torps. So 1
so,
roll.
and roll, roll.
No.
So 5?
5.
Okay. Now let's see if I can cancel any of these.
Yeah, everything.
And yeah, I've canceled it, so...
3, so 1 nothing.
Okay.
So
Well,
that was that. I did 1 point of damage with a battleship against frigates.
yeah, but I mean at that range band, then
Yeah,
you
range
have
band
to hit
force.
on 5s and 6s.
Yeah, range band 4 is tough.
Right. So we'll be back once I've decided what the hell unit I want to activate next and what the hell I want to do with it.
Cool. Alright, so as you can see, Lorenzo is missing a cruiser. Anyway, surprisingly, my cruisers, which are over there, actually managed to kill something, which never happens. What I basically did was I shot the 4 fixed guns of 2 of my cruisers, because one of them can't fire at that frigate. It died. And then my torpedoes proceeded to do nothing, but in their defense, they were like 1 dice apiece. And you guys didn't really need to see that because it was terrible. But, yeah, progress. So I killed the frigate, and I feel pretty good. Lorenzo's gonna move his battleship now, though. It's right fucking there. It's the devil. And it's probably gonna equalize shit right now. So we'll see what happens after this little fucking phase. Yeah, I speak gibberish.
Okay, so I moved my battleship and didn't do anything with it firing through the asteroid field. And then G spun his last unit of frigates basically around in a circle and fired at these 2 frigates and did 1 point of damage to one of them. That's the end of the activations for the first turn. Now we have to draw more cards based on the number of units we still have, and then we're gonna figure out what the hell we're gonna do for the next turn. We also have to roll for who gets to activate first. Now for the rest of the turns, while we kind of showed a lot more in depth for this turn, the next couple of turns we're just gonna show like
the end.
Yeah, the result of each unit's activation rather than showing like all the dice rolling and everything.
Yeah, because we're running out of battery.
Yeah, exactly. G seems to grow the damage repair cards on ass because he's gotten one more. That he had 2 last game and 1 this game already, so it allowed him to repair the 2 points of damage to his cruiser, which is really not good for me. And we'll see what comes about of this if he keeps pulling these out of his ass left and right.
Honestly, it's like Christmas. Every time I just go into that deck, I pull one up. It's retarded.
Okay, so we're at the end of turn 2 now, and as you can see, my squadron of frigates over here got finished off, but not before the hero last frigate that was still alive sacrificed himself valiantly, blowing up one of G's cruisers, which was desperately necessary for me.
That guy, he's dead.
Subsequently, my battleship has done 1 point of damage to one of his cruisers, but because this has the special rule incendiary ammo, he also gets a raging fire token that if he doesn't cancel it, the next time those activate will do additional damage. Other than that, one of my cruisers has taken a critical on a lucky combination of canceling hits and a card that G played that gives you a critical if you equal the damage rating. And one of the other cruisers has taken a point of damage. As you can see, I've moved up in kind of an X formation, and G implemented a strategy of moving into the asteroid field. And G's frigates are just hanging out in the back, trying to stay as far away as possible from the scene of the action. So we'll be back after the conclusion of turn 3 to see how much of a fiasco this turns into.
Yeah, no, it's good. Yeah.
Alright, so this is the conclusion of turn 3, and as you can see, things have really heated up here. I won the first activation on this turn, and I used it to get my cruisers in there and do some damage to one of his cruisers, and as well as I think I scored a critical on his battleship with my cruisers. I also scored a critical on his battleship with my battleship, but my battleship was my battleship activated first and was unable to get a hit, use the starboard or port gun racks against the cruisers because I couldn't get the angle right. These frigates did a little bit of damage to this ship actually, and which means the cruisers must not have done any damage to the cruisers. And in turn, well, no, G did do a critical to my battleship and spread a couple of token points around. G's dice have been pretty horrific this game, but again, he does have all 6 of his frigates still alive, so he's not down for the count just yet. Now, just like last game, it always comes to a point where who wins the roll to go first becomes absolutely huge. And right now is absolutely one of those times. So we will see in the next video who won the roll to go first and what the outcome was.
I hate this fucking game.
So basically, here we are at the end of turn 4, and shit's gotten pretty real. I lost one of my frigates, reducing that squad down to 1 frigate due to these goddamn fighters.
Bombers.
Oh, sorry, bombers. I repaired a little bit of damage on my cruisers using a special card, and used them to plink away at things. And Jamarco's battleship has taken 7 points of damage, so its primary weapon system is offline. It's been rendered pretty difficult to do damage with at the moment. And I managed to kill one of the cruisers in his remaining squad, reducing him to 1 cruiser. But he still has 5 frigates and those 4 wings, so you know, while his dice have been pretty horrendous, the card deck has been pretty good to him so far, so you never know. He might still pull something out of the fire.
Let's be real, it's over.
In any case,
8 hours later.
Yeah, this game is unfortunately run well past the time we've been able to allot to it. In the end, it came down to a small enough margin of victory that it counts as a draw. I have 315 points left alive and killed 295 points. So that's 610. That's 610 points. No, 620 victory points for me. And you've got 305, and you killed 285. So that's 590. Yeah, that's 590 versus 620. So it's only 30 points difference.
It's a draw.
So it basically counts as a draw. We're calling the game here because we're both way too tired to have this go on any longer.
And I need to take my models outside and beat them to death with a sledgehammer. Anyway, yeah.
So tune in next week for War Game Wednesday when we won't be
playing this
Firestorm Armada.
Yeah.
Because we need a break from it, and also
we actually have to buy more shit.
Yeah, we actually have to buy more models to get bigger forces. And
so then those won't kill anything, and awesome.
yeah.
I'll just paint white flags on them at the beginning of the game.
But we have something interesting coming up for the next War Game Wednesday. We have something planned that involves... So anyway, a couple of the other That's Your Garbage contributors are going to be involved in next week, and apparently we're supposed to be playing Euroscape, which I've never played before, so I need to study the rules.
But we're going to win, because we're way better at that shit than them. And
But Team War Games better win.
Alright, that's it for episode 2 of War Game... It's episode 2, right?
Yeah, episode 2 of War Game Wednesday. That's your, oh god, when is this game going to end? Garbage.
It's 3 a.m. Okay, bye guys.
Firing, that is, they can only fire in a forward channel defined by the width of the base that the ships are mounted on. The general rule of thumb with the Dindrenzi is to deploy them in 2 split wings and kind of bring them into the table in an X formation. This gives you the maximum possibility to line up shots with the forward fixed weapons, while also being able to bring the gun racks that fire into the port or starboard arc into play at the same time. So in this case, I've deployed in a way that kind of gives me a little more flexibility for how I feel more of his ships, particularly his cruisers, and I think he did a little work on his battleship too.
The base coat's done. It'll be done by tomorrow.
Excellent. His cruisers will be finished just in time for him to never use them again, because he despises them with the fury of 1,000 suns.
They're the worst ships in the game.
Although, to be fair, he also just tends to roll really bad with them. He rolls with his cruisers the way I tend to roll with my battleship, which is to say, unfathomably poorly. If you look at the terrain deployment for this game, you'll see that the terrain ended up very different from the first game, leaving a lot of open area in the center and a much more heavily covered area in G's deployment zone with the 2 asteroid fields. You'll notice that our deployments are also a little bit different. G's concentrated his deployment in the central area protected by the 2 asteroid fields, leaving only 1 squadron of frigates on the other hand behind the moon that you'll remember from last week's episode.
Yeah, Death Moon.
The Siren Moon.
Come to me if you want to live. Boom.
Yeah.
Exactly. Spooch everywhere.
Yeah, pretty much.
So much for the not swearing part.
Yeah, I know.
That's staying in.
Yeah. Anyhow.
If you're 15 and watching this video, stop now.
Yeah, pretty much. My deployment this week is a little bit different. I wanted to give myself some more options than I had last week. I deployed further out to the edges last week in that kind of split wing deployment that tends to be the signature for Dindrenzi. Because most of the Dindrenzi primary weapons are fixed forward fire. Alright, welcome to our second installment of War Game Wednesday. This is Lorenzo from That's Your Garbage, along with G, who's ham-handedly trying to operate this camera on a tripod.
That's right, we upgraded.
Speaking of upgrades, you'll notice if you watched last week's installment of War Game Wednesday that beyond the superior camera work from the tripod, G's also managed to paint a